Welcome to the NBAV podcast. Welcome back to NBAV, the NBA Avenue podcast, and I want to start off by talking about duos in the NBA, but more specifically, we're going to focus on the second best players, the end part of that duo. We'll start off with the Knicks playing against the 76ers, where Joel Embiid is obviously the best player on Philly. But the Knicks have not only been struggling to defend Embiid in the series, even though he's hobbled, the Knicks have also been really struggling to stop Maxey from getting to the basket. And then with his heroic performance in this past game, Maxey showed that he can be as lethal from three as he can going to the basket. But in games where Maxey was playing by himself, and there were a lot of games, there's a very large sample size of games where Embiid couldn't suit up and Maxey tried to be the number one, and he was horrendous. I even watched the game live in Phoenix, where Maxey was essentially taken out of the game. Like Phoenix, a very poor defensive team who just got eliminated from the playoffs, being swept by a team who loves to play defense like Minnesota. But when Phoenix played against Philly, and Philly didn't have Embiid, this was a regular season game, Maxey was a complete non-factor. The Phoenix defense totally took him out of the ball game. So Maxey was very ineffective in a lot of games. How many games did Embiid miss? 20? The Sixers dropped like lead in the ocean. They were like near the 2 or 3 seed, and they ended up going all the way down, barely making the playoffs. So it's pretty obvious that Maxey is not the number one player on your team. But as the 2, he just comes alive. He's so lethal. The Knicks can't stop him. And it's hard to double team 2 guys. That's something that we're definitely seeing. It's hard to double team. You can't double team Banchero and then other guys get open. If you're talking about the Cleveland Magic series, it's hard to double team Embiid and also double team Maxey. You want to get the ball out of their hands, but you want to get the ball out of both of their hands. But it's very interesting to me that you can have a player who looks so unbeatable, looks so dominant, who looks like there's really nothing you can do to stop him. I mean, the 4-point play that he had where he hit the three-pointer was really just a miraculous shot. It wasn't a shot where you really got it off clean. It was more of like he got fouled and it was like a double clutch sort of thing where he just flung it towards the rim and went in. And then the 3 after that was just absolutely ridiculous. You see those type of shots and you think that there's no way you can stop this guy. But when you put everything into perspective, actually there were many teams that stopped this guy when he was the number one player on the team. And I understand that you can't just expect one really good player to go out on a team of nobodies and win. Even with Embiid and with Maxey, it's not like the Sixers are up in the series. They're still down 3-2, and they haven't really got good performances from anyone else on the roster. So I understand the roster's weak when you take one of those 2 guys off the court. But just put things into perspective. Here you have the Knicks and you have the 76ers, 2 teams who are pretty good. 2 pretty good teams. And when you look at it and you think, well, hey, this is the Eastern Conference. The Eastern Conference is so weak compared to the West. Look at it at this point. You have, in the East, you really only have the Celtics. Then you have the Knicks and the Sixers who are fighting against each other. And then you have a Bucks team that is playing without Damian Lillard and Giannis. You have a Cavaliers team going against a Magic team, and both of them just feel like these mid-tier teams who are having a good series against each other but wouldn't really be able to beat anyone in the West, maybe aside from New Orleans. And then you have the Pacers who just have a horrible loss. You have the opportunity to close out a series, and you're playing against a team that's missing their top 2 players, and you fail to do it, getting blown out in the game. That's a really horrendous look. And then you have the Miami Heat without Jimmy Butler. So you basically have the Knicks and the 76ers kamikazing each other, and this is the greatest way it possibly could have worked out for Boston. The Knicks, the best all-around team in the Eastern Conference, aside from the Celtics. The Sixers, the team with the 2 best players available, aside from the Boston Celtics. Or maybe even period, the best 1-2 combo in the East. They have to fight it out against each other. Who does that benefit? That benefits the Boston Celtics because here the Knicks and the Sixers are going, and they're playing a very tough series, a physical series, a series that goes back and forth, where now you're going to Game 6. You may end up going to Game 7. All the other teams in the East are weaker. Whereas if you look at the Western Conference, you have the Thunder, Nuggets, Timberwolves. The Clippers and Mavericks are having a tough series. The Suns, a pretty good offensive team with a lot of firepower. Granted, they were missing Grayson Allen, which really, really destroyed them. But a lot of firepower still nonetheless on offense. And the Lakers, all of those teams could probably beat a lot of the Eastern Conference teams. It's really funny and interesting when you think about how when LeBron was on Cleveland, when LeBron was on Miami, how there weren't really any massive threats in the Eastern Conference, and people give LeBron flack for being able to make it to the finals so many times in a row, but saying, "Oh, it was in the Eastern Conference." It's still that way. The East has never caught up to the West, and you would think, hey, if this between the Celtics, the Knicks, and a healthy Bucks team, maybe suddenly the Eastern Conference is coming up on the Western Conference, but it's really not that close. Cavaliers, Magic, Pacers, Heat, the way things are currently constituted with injuries, none of these teams would really be able to go toe-to-toe with any of these Western Conference teams. If you stick the Lakers in the Eastern Conference right now, there's a chance they can make it to the conference final. Or there's for sure a very solid chance they could beat a lot of the teams, maybe half the teams, if not more, in the first round of the playoffs. But circling back to the original point, this is a time of interesting sidekicks, right? You have Nikola Jokic, and his sidekick is Jamal Murray, and Jamal Murray again goes out last night and destroys the Los Angeles Lakers despite the fact that he was told not to suit up for the game, and he was hobbled, and he goes out and he plays like the best player on the court. But he's only playing like the best player on the court in reference to Nikola Jokic being there. And in previous game, when the Milwaukee Bucks they won this past one, but in the previous one, the game that went to the overtime, or the double over, was it double overtime? I don't even remember. But they where Middleton hit 2 miraculous 3-pointers, and you think, hey, Middleton's playing better than Lillard. But ultimately, why is Middleton getting the 3-point shots? Why is he being the one to take those shots? But it's because they're hounding Lillard. No matter how many threes Chris Middleton hits, it's obvious when you watch and they're doing an inbounds play with only a couple of seconds left to the game that they're swarming Damian Lillard. They're not swarming Chris Middleton in the same way. The more respect, the greater respect is being given to Damian Lillard. So yes, it seems like Lillard is being dragged and is being carried by Middleton, but that's only because of the gravitas that Lillard has had. And I'm not a big Damian Lillard playoff guy. Frankly, I don't really understand who could be a big Damian Lillard playoff guy because he hasn't been a great playoff player. Ultimately, he's been a great regular season player, and he's been a great regular season 3-point shooter. But in the playoffs, he hasn't exactly come up big. There have been series that he's lost that he probably should have won. I'm not saying he ever had enough talent to win an NBA Finals, but that's partially because he's a level below someone like a Steph Curry, and also because he hasn't had as good help around him as some of these other guys who have won championships. But still, there are series where he could have won and he didn't play up to his potential, and where McCollum didn't play up to his potential. And both of them, for their careers, haven't been amazing playoff players. And then he sits out for a game, and the Bucks managed to win that one without him. And you think, well, hey, they won this game without him because they were committed on defense. If Damian Lillard was there, yeah, he's commanding a lot of attention on offense, but on defense, maybe that's really what they've been missing the entire season, and we know that's what they've been missing. But you look at the league right now and you think, it's a time of interesting sidekicks. It's a time where you have a guy like Maxey who can never be the number 1 player on a team, at least the way it looked this season, but as the number 2 player on the team, he's devastating. The Knicks fans don't want to see him anymore. And you look in the Western Conference and you see Jamal Murray. Jamal Murray's never done this as the number 1 player on his team, but as the number 2, he's an absolute killer. And on many nights, he looks like the 1, but he's not. You know Jokic is there. You know he's only as good as he is because Nikola Jokic is there. And you look at the Timberwolves and you think, for his career, Karl Anthony Towns has been not the player that we hoped he would be as the number 1, but suddenly You look at him as the number 2 guy when Edwards is there, and suddenly Karl-Anthony Towns is figuring everything out. He's shooting his threes better than he ever has before. He's driving to the basket better than he ever has before. He's playing with confidence. He's playing without fear of having to solve a puzzle in the final minutes of the game. Suddenly, he's not as much of a head case, and he looks like he's playing the best basketball of his career. Yeah, because he's not having to play like the number 1 anymore. There's a big distinction here between number 1 players in the NBA and number 2. And then you look at the Mavericks, and you have Kyrie Irving. It never worked out for him when he was trying to be the number 1 on various teams. But when he's been with LeBron, he had one of the greatest playoff moments ever, hitting the three-pointer to win the championships, to win the championship game, to win that final game. Steph Curry missed a 3, and Kyrie went and put one in. But Kyrie never been able to do it as the number 1 option on his team, but as the number 2 option behind LeBron, behind Luka, he's devastating. And it's just interesting to think about. It's an interesting thing to think about when you put it into perspective and you say, hey, Klay Thompson, incredible, incredible sidekick. Splash brother, but he's a little brother. But incredible sidekick. Scottie Pippen to Michael Jordan. Couldn't have been anything near what he was as the number 1 player on his team. Yeah, he would still be a really great player, but he was an all-time great sidekick. Jamal Murray, all-time great sidekick. Kyrie Irving, all-time great sidekick. That's just something that occurred to me watching these games. The Oklahoma City Thunder, Jalen Williams, seems like he's going to be an all-time great sidekick to SGA. Jalen Williams, J-Dub, even in games where Shai Gilgeous-Alexander wasn't there, he's been pretty unbelievable. So maybe he even has more upside than we could possibly even think. But getting back to the actual series and just seeing where we are. When you look at a series like the Knicks versus the Sixers, and you try to think where are things going to go from here, well, you've had games that have swung both ways. You had a game early on where it looked like the Sixers were going to win game 2, and the Knicks pulled it out by miraculous nature, and the same thing happened in the reverse here. The Knicks were up by 6 points. It looked like the game was there, 29 seconds to go, and the Sixers managed to pull out an absolutely miraculous victory. And the Knicks keep losing players. For everything that's being said about Embiid and his injury and hobbling up and down the court, the Knicks have lost Bogdanovich. They never had Julius Randle. They've played games without Mitchell Robinson. The Knicks are losing guys left and right. Embiid is still on the court for now. Granted, we think that in Game 6, it's going to be even tougher for Embiid, considering the smaller amount of rest, only being able to have 1 game in between versus having 2 games between all of the early games of the series. Now it's down to 1. And then Game 7 is going to be the same thing. So you'd think Embiid is going to wear further and further out. That bodes well for the Knicks. The Knicks can definitely win Game 6. They have a really good shot at winning Game 6 and putting this thing on ice. But the Sixers can cobble it together for one more game, take it to a Game 7, and whether Embiid is able to suit up or not, whether Embiid is able to, play on half a leg or not, you don't know what's going to happen in Game 7. You would think the Knicks would have a better shot at winning it. The Knicks had a good shot at winning this one. Ultimately, I think the Knicks still have the better shot. I think the Knicks they're up. They obviously can put it away here. They can take Game 7 at home. And Embiid is only going to get worse as time goes on. The Knicks have a little bit more resolve to stay. They're a little more durable. They've already lost several players, and what happens? They're still tougher. OG has a little bit more in the tank than Embiid. And Hart has a little bit more in the tank to play these big minutes. And McBride is the real deal. So ultimately, I do think the series is going to continue to go in the way of the Knicks, and the Knicks are going to close this thing out either in 6 or 7, hopefully in 6. Because this Knicks team is a tough mentality, and they're going to go back there and they're going to go for and they're going to try to take Philly out in Philly. And they can do it. They shouldn't be discredited and thinking that they're not going to be able to do this. Then yesterday, what happens? You have the Bucks blowing out the Pacers in a game that makes absolutely no sense without Damian Lillard and without Giannis. And you look at the Pacers and you think, Tyrese, what's going on? When I watch Tyrese Halliburton play, everyone's talking about injuries. It's not clear to me that he's injured. I can't tell. His shot looks the same. His driving to the basket, his shiftiness looks the same. He's able to get past certain levels and get to, the 3 levels of scoring. How can you tell that he's injured? He looks like the same guy. Suddenly, TJ McConnell not as effective as he was during the regular season. TJ McConnell turning the ball over. The Pacers not being able to play good defense when they're running out TJ McConnell and Tyrese Halliburton in the same lineup. Suddenly, it's a turnstile to the basket, something that the Bucks are typically the ones doing, giving up layups at the cuff. Now it's the Pacers. The Pacers squandering a massive opportunity, and you think, hey, this Pacers team and this Bucks team, these are teams that anyone would have loved to face in the first round. Anyone could have beat these teams, but they're playing each other. And we're just going to see which team is going to take advantage of the opportunity sitting in front of them, and it doesn't seem like either team really wants to that much. Who knows who's going to be available for Game 6? If Damian Lillard suits up for Game 6, is that better for the Bucks or is that worse? Are they going to play better defense or are they going to play worse? When's Giannis coming back? Who knows? At this point, you would think Giannis is probably sitting out the rest of the series. At least sitting out Game 6, because why would they be sitting him out? Why would they sit him out down 3-1 if they're not going to sit him out down 3-2? Same odds of going home. Ultimately, the Pacers have to grab this thing by the horns. They have to put together one incredible defensive effort and put this thing away. And it shouldn't really be that hard, considering you are the better team at this point. Orlando plays against Cleveland. And they get an all-time incredible performance from Banchero. Banchero wasn't missing. He hit every mid-range shot. He hit a whole bunch of threes. He went hard to the basket. He got some emphatic dunks. The guy can't be stopped. This young in his career, he can't be stopped. And Orlando's played well to be in this series, losing the first 2 and then coming back and winning the next 2. But ultimately, Orlando doesn't have as good of a team as Cleveland. Cleveland has the ability to have Garland go off in the first quarter. Garland hits a bunch of threes. His shiftiness, he gets to the basket. Mobley is able to play good defense. They have Jared Allen. And then they have Donovan Mitchell, who's just the steadying force throughout the entire game. He's always getting to his right hand. Orlando's not able to stop him from getting to that right hand, even though they know he's going to go to it at the end. They have Max Strus, who's highly dependable. They have some veterans, Tristan Thompson and Marcus Morris, who came in and gave them some good minutes in the series, who gave them some timely three-pointers. They have a Okoro, who's been okay. Orlando doesn't have that much. Wendell Carter here and there. Franz Wagner here and there. He hasn't hit his full potential yet. Suggs is hobbled. The fact that the fact that Orlando was in the game and kept it close yesterday was by virtue of one player having an amazing game, and that was Banchero. Banchero is this team. You take Banchero off of this team, and they're a 5-win team in the league. They're the worst team in the NBA if you take him off this team. Banchero is going to be one of the great players in the league moving forward. You go prior to that, and you have the Lakers finally falling to the Nuggets. It was a tough series for them. They've played this team before. We knew from the past it was a tough series, and it's been several tough series. The Lakers can't beat the Nuggets, not with the way the team is currently constituted. The positives for the Lakers, Austin Reeves is really, really good. You got him on the team. You have control of him. He's really good. He's a really good player, and he plays better than he should in the playoffs. He's a guy who you can rely on at the end of ball games. He hit a 3 to go ahead at the end of that ball game. I mean, he was he was good all series long. Austin Reeves, in the end of a fourth quarter, is a guy you can rely on as if he's a top player in the league. Now, he's not necessarily a top player in the league all game, but when the game is on the line, he's very, very reliable, very steady. He manages to always create a scoring opportunity for him, and he frequently takes advantage of it. But ultimately, Denver, the better team, the championship team. You have the top 2 seeds, Oklahoma City and Denver, both finishing up their series and really the top 3. The Thunder, the Nuggets, and the Timberwolves all handled business, and you see just how good those 3 teams really are at the top. The Lakers didn't have enough. LeBron is older. Anthony Davis isn't the number one player on a team. He needs to be the number two, and he can't be the number one behind. But he can't be the number one with this version of LeBron. LeBron takes a lot of three-pointers at this point in his career. He settles a lot where he didn't used to. Defense isn't as good. All-around athleticism, a little bit less than what it used to be. He's still an amazing player. He'd still be welcome on any team in the NBA. But for now, the Nuggets have their number. And we all knew that. Nobody really expected the Lakers to win this. It was kind of impressive that the Lakers even got here. The Lakers won the play-in. They were hovering around the 10-11 seeds the entire season. They finally managed to make it in. They got up a little higher. They got to the first play-in game, and they took advantage and won that game in the game where Zion got injured at the end and had to be taken out. So things bounced the Lakers' way. Unfortunately, you can't expect everything to bounce your way. They got the Nuggets in the first round. No one expected them to win, and they did not win, but they managed to at least win a game in the series, and they can look back at this entire season as a whole and say, it was an okay season. The Thunder did what they had to do. They got the worst match. They got the easiest matchup. They got the worst team probably in the Western Conference, in the Pelicans, probably by a wide margin as well. They took advantage. They swept them like you expect a 1 seed to. Minnesota goes against Phoenix, and you think, hey, Phoenix, even without Grayson Allen, you have so much firepower at the top. You have two of the best players in the series, perhaps the two best, and then Anthony Edwards goes out and just eats Kevin Durant for breakfast. He reveled in being defended by Kevin Durant. He put back such a ridiculous dunk on Durant at the end of this game. He continually stares at Durant after buckets. He really takes it personal. Apparently, Durant was his favorite player growing up, and he took this opportunity to destroy him and embarrass him. Trying to predict this series was extremely tough. I thought the Suns would be able to get it done, and most agreed. And it's the kind of performance where if you're trying to predict NBA games and you're trying to predict NBA series and you predict the Phoenix Suns win and the Phoenix gets swept, they don't even win a game, let alone the series, you have to think about, should I be in this business? How can I make predictions? How can my focus be on predicting NBA games and predicting series? And to predict the Suns to win the series, and they don't even win one game. They lose 4 straight. You would think you got to fire some analysts for the way they predicted this, myself included. But then again, you also have to fire the players. You have to fire the coach. Because Phoenix shouldn't have been swept in this series. A 3-6 matchup, I understand Minnesota's really good. I understand Minnesota plays defense. But Phoenix had to wake up and play defense. Phoenix didn't play defense the entire year. Phoenix can throw a lineup out there with 3 7-footers in it, and they couldn't figure out how to use that to their advantage behind a supposedly defensive-minded coach. You can throw Nurkic, Bol, and Durant out there, and you can clog up the entire court. You had a series where Eric Gordon was hitting 3-pointers, and you couldn't manage to win a game. Eric Gordon was so up and down this entire season. If you would have told me that he was hitting his threes and the Suns still couldn't win a game, I wouldn't even understand how. I still don't understand how. Well, I do understand how. It's the defense. They didn't play defense. Basketball is a game where you're trying to do 2 things at the same time. You're trying to score as many points as you can while also stopping your opponent from scoring. And that's how you end up with more points at the end of the game and you win the game. But if you're only scoring and the other team is playing you super tough on D, and then you don't play defense back on the other end, and you try zones, and it's clear that you never practiced a zone, you never played a zone the entire year, you just got embarrassed. You have 3 of the supposed best players in the league, and you got embarrassed. The Suns have been getting used to being embarrassed in the playoffs. They got embarrassed by Dallas in Game 7 on their home court, and they got embarrassed here, losing 4 straight games to Minnesota, not even getting 1 victory. Then you have the Celtics, only losing 1 game so far, winning all the other games pretty handily. And everything broke right for them. Everything broke right for them this season. The East is weak. The second and third best teams in the East are playing against each other, going in a long series where Embiid is getting worn out. The Knicks are having to play their guys 45-plus minutes per game. The Knicks are losing pieces. They already lost Bogdanovich. They already lost Julius Randle. Mitchell Robinson is in and out of the lineup, dealing with injuries. And you think this is phenomenal. Boston is going to have to... Boston can win this Game 5, win 4-1, go on to the next round. They're going to get another easy matchup. Meanwhile, the Sixers and Knicks are continuing to go at each other, wear each other out. Then whichever team wins that, they're going to have to play another series before they play Boston. By the time this gets to an Eastern Conference final, who knows what would be left of a Knicks or a Sixers team. And Boston would get the opportunity to use their firepower to dispose of either one of those teams and go to the finals. Everything's broke right for Boston. And that's basically where we are. The only other series that we haven't really touched on is the Clippers versus Dallas, where it's 2-2. The Clippers have got amazing performances in some of the games from Paul George. They've got pretty good performances from James Harden. Kawhi's been in and out of the lineup. And yet still, Dallas has not played their best basketball. They've shot themselves in the foot. They've gone down big and tried to come back late. And Dallas could really be up 3-1 or 4-0 had they played their best basketball. And they haven't. They haven't been that same team that they've been in the regular season. They haven't been that team in the playoffs. Since the All-Star break, they were unbelievable. And they haven't yet unlocked that, and we're going to see if they can unlock that today, but they're going to have to do it on the road in Game 5. If they win this, they'll probably finish it up in 6. But they're going to have to hit that gear. They're going to have to hit that gear. I have high hopes for Dallas. I want to see them go toe-to-toe in a great series against Denver, but it's not going to happen if they can't get it together against the Clippers. They're going to have to unlock that. They have the ability to. They have the better team. They have more depth. They have better players. They have younger players. They have more athletic players. They have guys who can do it in the clutch, more reliable, and hopefully they'll get it done. We'll be with you for the rest of the playoffs and beyond, the championships and beyond, the offseason and beyond. As always, this is NBAV. That's short for NBA Avenue. You can follow us on social. You can email the show at nbavenue@yahoo.com. We're your source for a great time every time, and until next time, we are out.